Dear friends, is there any pain greater than being abandoned by your own father just because you were poor? Today, right at her happiest moment, DM, our resilient girl, broke down. The image of that small girl holding a hoe in the garden, sobbing as she remembers a sticky rice cake and the back of a father who left and never returned. It's going to bring you to tears. James promised to find her family. But is this reunion a blessing or a curse? Get your tissues ready. The story of the bride's missing piece starts right now. Remember to hit like and subscribe to show your support for DM. The road from Mr. Juan's villa to DM's small house had never felt shorter, yet James had never felt it drag on like this. He wished he could grow wings and fly straight to the woman of his life. James stepped on the gas. The car shot forward like an arrow through the wind in the late afternoon. The breeze rushed through the window, messing up his hair, carrying the taste of freedom and victory. Echoing in James's mind was his father's sentence. "All right, I agree. Go bring her and the child here." That sentence was like a pardon, lifting the rock that had weighed on James's heart for 5 years. He remembered the days DM suffered humiliation, looked down on by his father, whispered about by people calling her a gold digger. He remembered the nights she cried silently, afraid she was ruining his future. "DM, wait for me, the suffering is over," James screamed inside the car, smiling like a kid who just got a present. He imagined DM's face when she heard the news. She would definitely cry. But this time, they would be tears of happiness. He would throw her a fairy tale wedding, making up for her hard days as a single mom. He would give her a proper title as she officially entered the Vu family. The car turned onto the familiar dirt road leading to DM's house. The roadside wildflowers looked strangely vibrant today. The afternoon sun poured like honey over the small garden, the place that held his entire peaceful world. James parked in front of the gate. The house was quiet. "DM, I'm here," James called out loud, but there was no answer. Baby Nai was probably being watched by her grandmother or out playing somewhere. He walked around to the back of the house, and there it was. The image that made his heart ache with love. Under the setting red sun, DM was bent over hoeing the earth. She was wearing a set of old frayed clothes, pant legs rolled up to her knees, revealing pale legs stained with mud. Her long hair was hastily clipped up with a plastic claw, loose strands stuck to her sun-flushed cheeks with sweat. The sound of the hoe thud echoed rhythmically in the quiet air. Every strike showed the patience and endurance of a woman used to carrying the burden of making ends meet. DM paused, wiping sweat from her forehead, letting out a tired sigh. She looked up at the sky, her eyes filled with a distant sadness. She had no idea that her fate had just turned a new page. James tiptoed closer. The sound of dry leaves crunching under his feet was drowned out by the hoeing. When he was just a step away, he opened his arms wide. "Ah!" DM startled, gasping, as a pair of strong arms wrapped around her from behind. The familiar masculine cologne hit her nose, letting her regain her composure immediately. "James, you scared the life out of me." DM turned around, hoe still in hand, her mud-streaked face looking at him. James said nothing. He spun her around, lifted her up, and twirled her in the air. "What are you doing?" "Put me down. You're gonna get your suit dirty," DM yelled, half laughing, half scared. James set her down, but kept a tight grip on her shoulders. He looked deep into her eyes, his gaze sparkling with pure joy. "I don't care about the dirt. Screw the suit, DM. I have news for you." Earth-shattering news. DM looked confused. "What news makes you this happy? Did you win the lottery?" James shook his head, laughing loud. "Better than the lottery. Dad." Dad agreed. "He gave us his blessing to get married. He told me to come to get you and our daughter and bring you home right now." Time seemed to freeze. Even the evening birds stopped singing. DM stood rooted to the spot. The hoe slipped from her hand and hit the ground with a thud. Are you telling the truth?" DM's voice trembled. She couldn't believe her ears. "It's the truth 100%. James took her dirty, sandy hands and kissed them. "Dad apologized to me. He hugged me. He realized he was wrong. From now on, no one can tear us apart. You're going to be my wife, the official daughter-in-law of the Vu family." DM burst into tears. They streamed down her face, washing away the mud on her cheeks. James held her close, comforting her. It was the happiest moment of her life. Or at least it should have been. But then, James felt Deem's body suddenly stiffen. She wasn't trembling with joy anymore. This was a tremble of pain. Her crying changed, shifting from happy sobs to a choked, self-pitying weep. Diem slowly pushed James away. She lowered her head, staring at her bare feet on the brown earth. "What's wrong, honey?" James asked worriedly, lifting her chin. "Aren't you happy? Are you still angry at Dad about the past?" Diem shook her head, tears still falling like rain. She looked up at James, her eyes holding a deep sorrow she had hidden for so long. "I'm happy. I'm so happy. Being your wife, being accepted by your father, is the dream of my life." She hesitated. Then, her voice dropped sad as the wind moaning through the leaves. "But James, suddenly, I really miss home. Home." James was surprised. "But we are home." "No." Diem shook her head vigorously. "I mean my real family, my biological parents." James was stunned. He knew Diem was adopted, but she rarely spoke of her past. Diem sank down onto the unfinished furrow. She grabbed a handful of dirt, squeezing it tight. "You know, back then, my family was extremely poor. So poor, we didn't have rice to eat. I remember vaguely. That day it rained heavily with thunder crashing." Diem continued, her voice lost in painful memories. "My dad, my biological father, he led me by the hand through the rain. I thought he was taking me out to play, but he brought me to a stranger's house, pressed a sticky rice cake into my hand and said, 'Wait here for Daddy, I'm going to buy candy.' Then he left, and he never came back." Diem wailed a gut-wrenching cry in the late afternoon. "I stood there waiting for him all night, until people came out and found me blue from the cold. I was given away, just because we were too poor. My parents couldn't feed all the children, so they had to abandon their youngest daughter." James sat down beside her, holding her trembling shoulders tight. He never guessed that behind this single mother's strength lay a soul scarred by a wound that had never healed. "For years, I've lived with this complex. I was terrified of being abandoned again. Now, about to wear a wedding dress, about to walk down the aisle, I suddenly feel so pitiful. Other brides have fathers to walk them, mothers to give advice and dowries. But me, I don't even know who I am, or if my parents are dead or alive." Diem turned to grip James's hand, her eyes pleading desperately. "James, I want to find them. I want to find my biological parents. Even though they abandoned me, I still want to invite them to the wedding. I want my birth father and mother there on the most important day of my life. I want them to see their daughter is grown up and happy. Will you help me? Let's do that before we get married. Okay. Hearing Diep's heartfelt words, James felt his heart clench. He loved this woman 10 times more. He wiped her tears, tucking messy strands of hair behind her ear. His gaze was steady and firm. I promise you. At any cost, I will find your biological parents. Really? Hope sparked in Diep's eyes. But it's been over 20 years. The clues are so dim. I only remember my dad had a long scar on his left arm, and my mom, she used to sing the lullaby Kola. James nodded. Even if I have to turn this whole country upside down, I will find them. You deserve the most complete wedding. My parents will support this too. Stop crying now. The crying bride looks ugly. Diep smiled through her tears, resting her head on James's chest. The sunset had faded and night slowly wrapped around them. In that peaceful space, they felt more connected than ever. However, James suddenly remembered his father Juan's words at dinner earlier. I have something important to discuss regarding a secret about Diep's late mother that I stumbled upon. A cold chill ran down James's spine. Why did his father know about Diep's biological mother? Diep said she was abandoned because of poverty. But what if the truth wasn't simply poverty? Why would Mr. Juan, a man of the upper class, have clues about a peasant family that abandoned a child over 20 years ago? James looked at Diep peacefully, resting in his arms, a vague anxiety rising in his gut. Perhaps the journey to find Diep's family wouldn't just be about tearful reunions, but about prying open a box filled with the dark secrets of the past. Joy was cut short and sorrow rushed in. Diep postponed the wedding, choking back tears to ask James for one final favor. Find the parents who threw her away on that stormy night years ago. But innocent Diep has no idea that finding her roots is actually lighting the fuse of a ticking time bomb. The only clue, the scar on the father's arm and the mother's lullaby. The terrifying thing is, those traits strangely match the people lurking around Tycoon Juan's life. Afterward, James held Diep tight under the light of the new moon. He gently kissed her forehead where the salty sweat of labor still lingered. I agree. James said, his voice as firm as a nail driven into wood. We will postpone the wedding. Only when you find your parents, only when you can wear that wedding dress with your birth parents watching, will I officially bring you home. Diep looked up at her husband, her eyes swollen from crying but shining with infinite gratitude. She began to rummage through her fragmented childhood memories for any pieces of her hometown. I only remember there was a very steep hill. People called it Kong Hill. Past the hill was a fishing village by the river, extremely poor. My house was way up on a desolate hill with a palm leaf roof. I vaguely remember my father's name was Hung. He drank a lot and went into the forest to gather firewood. With only that scarce and vague information, the next morning, James drove his luxury car alone out of the bustling city. He didn't bring Diep because he didn't want her to endure the rough journey. And above all, he wanted to scout the situation first. He was afraid that if the truth was too harsh, Diep would be hurt all over again. The car sped across smooth asphalt roads, turned onto concrete intercommune paths, and finally onto bumpy red dirt roads full of potholes. The further he got from the city, the more desolate and bleak the scenery became. High-rise buildings thinned out, giving way to moss-covered tile roofs and ragged rice fields. James frowned at the GPS, which had lost signal long ago. He rolled down the window, asking an old woman carrying vegetables on the roadside, "Excuse me, ma'am, is there anyone named Hung around here? Lives on a hill, gathers firewood for a living." The old woman squinted at the stranger, then pointed toward a misty mountain in the distance. "One-armed Hung. He lives over on Nui Hamlet. Poor guy, poor as a church mouse. His wife left ages ago. Now he lives with his youngest son." James's heart skipped a beat. One-armed Hung. The scar Diem mentioned. Could that be why he was called one-armed? And youngest son, so Diem has a younger brother. Following her finger, James drove up a steep, rocky slope. The low chassis of his car scraped against the rocks with a heart-wrenching crunch, but he ignored it. Halfway up the hill, the road became so narrow the car couldn't pass. James had to park and walk along a trail, overgrown with weeds. And then a scene appeared before him that made his heart sink. It wasn't really a house. It was more like a shack. The palm leaf roof was rotted, riddled with holes showing the blue sky. The walls, plastered with mud and straw, were peeling off in large chunks. In the front yard, a few skeletal chickens scratched the dirt for worms. No gate, no fence, just poverty blanketing everything. "Is anyone home?" James called out. No answer. Only the sound of wind whistling through the thorny bamboo bushes sounding eerie. James walked into the yard. He saw a pile of dry firewood scattered about. A black cold stove. Suddenly, from a dark corner of the house, a figure stepped out. It was a young man, about 17 or 18 years old. Shirtless, skin sunburnt, and grimy ribs showing clearly. His hair was long and messy, like a bird's nest covering half his face. He looked at James with eyes full of suspicion and something feral. "Who are you looking for?" the young man asked, his voice raspy and curt. James tried to stay polite, smiling, friendly. "Hello. I wanted to ask if this is Mr. Hung's house." "Yeah. The old man is out," he replied, hand still gripping a dull machete, making James shudder slightly. Are you Mr. Hung's son?" James continued, observing the boy's face closely. Despite the dirt and hardship, James recognized familiar features. Those eyes, those big, round, black, and deeply sad eyes were exactly like Diem's. The high, delicate nose bridge, too. Bloodlines truly couldn't be hidden. "I'm Tone, Hung's son. Why are you asking, debt collector? This house is out of money. Don't bother coming in." The young man named Tone snapped about to turn away. "No, I'm not collecting debt," James quickly explained. "I'm here looking for a relative. Do you know a sister named Diem?" The name Diem made Tone freeze. He turned his head, staring at James, brows furrowed in suspicion. "Diem," Tone muttered, digging through his limited memory. I think I had a sister named Diem a long time ago. But that was ages ago. I was tiny back then, maybe 3 or 4. Don't remember her face. Just remember, she was given away by Dad." James felt a sting in his nose. So it was true. Diem remembered correctly, and this younger brother was the only living witness left. "Don't you go to school?" James looked at Tone's disheveled appearance, blurting out a question that felt a bit insensitive, yet was driven by deep pity. Toan smirked a smile, so bitter it hurt to see. "School what for? We don't even have money for food. I dropped out in 5th grade. I just scavenge in the forest or do whatever manual labor people hire me for." Saying this, Toan threw the machete onto the ground with a loud clang, wiping his hands on his pants. "Look, if you want to wait for the old man be my guest. I have to go reinforce some rice paddies to earn tonight's dinner. It's getting late." "Wait," James called out. "When will your father be back?" "Who knows?" Tone shrugged indifferently. "The old man goes deep into the woods for firewood. Sometimes he's back at pitch black. Sometimes he gets drunk and passes out right there in the forest. You can sit if you like." With that, Toan sauntered off, his skinny, crooked figure disappearing behind the bamboo thicket. He didn't look back once at his wealthy future brother-in-law, nor did he bother offering the guest a sip of water. Poverty seemed to have calloused over even the most basic social graces. James sighed, looking for a place to sit. There wasn't a single intact chair in the house, just a broken bamboo cot propped up by loose bricks. James wiped it with his handkerchief and sat down. He looked up at the altar. The incense bowl was cold, covered in scattered ash. The portrait of a woman, likely Diem's mother, was yellowed and faded, her face barely visible. "Diem," James whispered his wife's name. "Is this where you were born? Did you have to endure this deprivation?" The more he looked at the house, the more James understood why that father had given Diem away all those years ago. Perhaps it was the only way for her to survive, to remove one mouth to feed in this exhausted family. But the pain of abandonment remained a scar that would never heal. Time passed slowly. The afternoon sun faded. Darkness began to creep out from the corners, swallowing the space. Mosquitoes began to buzz like flutes. James sat motionless on the bamboo cot, waiting patiently. He wanted to meet that father. He wanted to ask him one question. Why were you so cruel? And have you ever regretted it? 6:00 p.m., 7:00 p.m. It was now pitch black. The house had no electricity, dark as a tomb. James had to turn on his phone flashlight just to see. His stomach rumbled. Exhaustion from the long journey hit him. But more importantly, he started worrying about Diem. He had been gone since morning, and his battery was running low. If he didn't return, Diem would start spiraling and get scared. And most importantly, the father named Hung was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he really did sleep in the forest, James told himself. He stood up, shining his light around the house one last time. He pulled a thick wad of cash from his wallet, intending to leave it for the younger brother. But then he froze. If he left money, here would it be safe? Would the alcoholic father come home and drink it all away? Would Tone be terrified? James thought for a moment, then decided to put the money away. He tore a page from his notebook, wrote down his phone number, and placed it on the altar under the incense bowl so the wind wouldn't blow it away. I didn't meet him today, but I know where this place is. I will bring Diem back. This meeting needs her presence. James stepped out of the desolate cold shack. The sound of insects buzzed loudly in the empty night. He drove down the mountain, his heart heavy with thought. Just as he cleared the dirt road, James's phone, now at 5% battery, buzzed. It was Diem calling. "Hello, James. Are you on your way back? I'm so anxious. My left eye keeps twitching uncontrollably." "I'm on my way," James said, forcing a calm tone. "I found the house, honey, but it's a long story. Just wait for me to get home and we'll talk." James hung up and floored the gas, speeding into the night. He knew that tomorrow, when Diem heard everything, she would shed many tears. And he knew that confronting that alcoholic father would be an incredibly intense psychological battle. But James didn't know that the moment his car disappeared, a pair of cloudy, bloodshot eyes watched from the bushes near the dilapidated shack. Mr. Hung had been back for a long time. Hiding in the brush, he saw the luxury car and the wealthy man enter his home. He had been too terrified to show his face, thinking a debt collector had come for his life. But seeing James leave a note and drive off, he staggered out. Picking up the piece of paper, he muttered, "Diem, that little brat I sold off all those years ago. Is she this rich now?" A greedy, twisted smile curled on the father's haggard face. The real tragedy was just beginning. James drove away with regret, thinking he missed his future father-in-law. But he never guessed that the ghost was hiding in the bushes, witnessing everything. The alcoholic father feels no remorse. Instead, realizing the daughter he abandoned has struck gold. His bottomless greed has been awakened. Instead of a tearful reunion, just how cruel is Mr. Hung's plan to milk his son-in-law and own daughter dry and the younger brother, Toan? Will he stand by his long-lost sister or join forces with his greedy father? DM, brace yourself. The nightmare named family is crashing down on your doorstep. Hit like to warn James and subscribe to the channel immediately. The next episode, the greedy father returns and the price of blood ties. He said, "Anna isashi on shantiyo."